is our world. But the world wasn't always here. It was made. Let's see how God is at work in the story of creation. In the beginning, there was only God, and God said, "Let there be light."
Solo menai.
And there was light. God separated the light from the darkness, making day and night. That was the first day.
Chite mehi.
On the second day, God made the water and the sky.
Utopike.
On the third day, God made dry land and plants to grow there.
Yun faun.
On the fourth day, God made the sun and the moon and all the stars.
Miskot mei.
On the fifth day, God made all the creatures of the water.
Oh. Tusare.
And all the birds of the sky. On the sixth day, God made all the different animals of the land.
Zotalo. Dog Yulon.
And then God made humans. A man and a woman. On the seventh day, God rested from all the work of creating. is Adam and Eve, the first humans God made. They lived in the Garden of Eden. And this is the sneaky serpent, who also lived in the garden. Let's see how God is at work in the story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve could eat the fruit from any tree in the Garden of Eden. Except...
Septa! Mar, wat hier munada, wat hier maga. Ma fin of sana sleep, ma fountain of sana.
God told them they must never eat the forbidden fruit. Adam and Eve obeyed God. But the serpent had other ideas.
Burr?
Comment ça, là? Une valseuse.
After they ate the fruit, Adam and Eve felt different. And realized they were naked.
Yaman fi shuhu. Yaman fi yo kanafanu. Mot skamananu.
Abinar.
Gia Reverend Monocrown. Schmencher. Makara Fadar Home. Vista. Hada. Hada. for Sarah. Garden of God, come, Clara. Fishka, Bahada, Fatu. Katita, Ferrata, Mata, Pada, Gada, Gada. Garden of God, come, Clara. Tormen. Mafana Katara tu, Schmenter. Mafno, Mafanemic, Homer. Martha.
Because they had broken God's one rule, Adam and Eve had to leave the garden. But God was still with them. This is Noah, who was an obedient servant of God. Let's see how God is at work in the story of Noah. In Noah's time, people all around him had become very wicked.
Nick! Look, Glasnost!
One day, Noah received a message from God. Because the people had turned away from God, there would be a great flood. And Noah was to build a really big boat. The big boat would save 2 of each animal. And Noah's family. And all the world was covered by the flood. days, the rain stopped. But all of the land was still underwater. And after this, God promised to never flood the whole world again. This is Abraham and his wife Sarah. Abraham and Sarah were very old and did not have children. Let's see how God is at work in the story of Abraham.
Todusie.
Koto.
Abraham and Sarah had never been blessed with children of their own. One night, God spoke to Abraham. God God promised that Abraham would have as many descendants as there were stars in the sky.
Squirt. Person can damage. Thank you.
Abraham and Sarah were very happy because God always keeps a promise. This is Sarah and her husband Abraham. God had promised them children many years before, but they are still waiting. And these are the mysterious travelers who have very exciting news. Let's see how God is at work in the story of Sarah and Abraham.
What?
Who were these mysterious visitors? The mysterious guests told Sarah and Abraham that they would soon have a baby. But Sarah knew that would be impossible. She and Abraham were too old now to have children. Still, the guests insisted. Sarah and Abraham would have a baby soon. A baby boy.
Freaking
And so, Sarah and Abraham were reminded that God always keeps a promise.